You know how I've been repeatedly saying how Mahito is the worst awakening in the game, and how he has zero way to achieve his conditionals, and how Head Splitter is utter garbage that is worse than every awakening move in the game? Yeah, none of that is true anymore. Z's new update that removed Head Splitter in favor of a new move called Joe Splitter basically solves the number one problem I had with Mahito, which is the fact that he had nothing besides his fists when it came to confirming his moves, making him really bad as an awakening because you had nothing to catch people with. Now, that problem is partially gone, with Mahito having a pretty good way to ragdoll people and confirm it to idle transfiguration. Z also added in some really cool things like custom servers, logic blocks, and some quality of life updates. Let's go over the updates for now. Head Splitter was replaced by a new move called Drill Splitter. A new tab was added to Ranked for viewing custom servers. A lot of new logic blocks were added to build mode, which basically act as redstone, letting people make better builds. Region matchmaking was added to Ranked. A new server setting was added to private servers, which I think is a disable all skills setting. There's improved compression of build save data. Leaderboards update every 5 minutes now. You accelerate the longer you keep flying with the private server setting. You are invincible during build mode. The weekly leaderboard was fixed. Footstep detection was fixed. Infinite awakening breaking after death was fixed. Finally, being able to attack while on two-fold kick's finisher was fixed. Alright. For the discussion, pretty much every single substantial thing I have to say has to deal with Drill Splitter. There weren't a lot of changes in this update, and the majority of them, besides logic blocks, which aren't my area of expertise, are really small. Putting that aside though, let's talk about Drill Splitter. First, this move makes the user do a dropkick forward before knocking anyone in front of the user forward and then following up with a drill that ragdolls at the end. You can think of this as basically being Fever Breaker if it guard braked and moved the user forward on use. The move is made to be Mahito's combo starter to help him land moves like Idle Transfiguration and Domain Expansion. Mahito's main weakness in the past was that he had quite literally nothing when it came to helping him combo into Idle Transfiguration, which he really did need to combo into because of the huge startup on the move that made it easy to interrupt at close and mid range, and a not too long range that made it easy to run from at a distance. Domain Expansion obviously isn't going to help him combo, and Head Splitter disabled you from doing moves, so you only had your fists to help you, which in that case makes you even worse than a base moveset. It made Mahito get absolutely mauled by awakenings, and even bases, because he had no moves at all to catch runners or win engagements, and he was complete and utter garbage because of that. Drill Splitter fixes that by just a little bit, since it covers a good amount of ground and gets Mahito the ragdoll that he needs to use any of his moves. It can be interrupted, but nobody is really hitting you besides Sukuna when you use this move, and while it technically doesn't true combo into anything because of the end lag of the move, you're going to hit the follow-up Idle Transfiguration 98% of the time, with that 2% being when you're fighting a base Yuji or Hikari who can counter, or someone who has their awakening and can iframe it. There is one other weakness to the move, which is that its hitbox isn't too huge, and it only does a hit at the end of the dash, meaning that you can easily slide past your opponent if you don't tilt the move. But I think that's a fair weakness for something that lets Mahito land a 2-shot and 1-shot. I think having Head Splitter be an R variant or something would have been nice, simply for the silly factor, but there's no denying that replacing Head Splitter with this absolutely lets Mahito be an actual awakening rather than a joke. He's still got his weird playstyle of stalling and running, but now that playstyle can actually work a little. Of the other things to talk about, logic blocks are really cool. Letting players go even further with their builds in the game by allowing them to use stuff like sound and light blocks paired up with touch blocks will let people make a lot of cool stuff. It's not an area I'm experienced in, but more options for people to work with generally means more creative builds. Custom servers are a very, very cool feature. To my knowledge, I don't know of any other Battleground games that have this kind of thing. It lets people upload their own maps and let people play in them, which is a lot of fun and lets people show off their own builds and skills besides just letting their friends into your private servers every once in a while. There are of course server limits, meaning that you can't join the popular servers unless you're one of the lucky first 20, but that's not a fault of Z and just Roblox limitations. As a side note, I haven't seen a Library of Ruina or Plima's Company themed map yet, and it'd be really cool if someone made one. The last thing I have any thoughts on is the acceleration during flight. I'm really glad this was added back, because it makes it so much easier to travel around private servers quickly. Genuinely one of my favorite quality of life features, despite how simple it is. And, as a funny side note, you can go fast enough that Roblox starts lagging and teleporting you back to where you were. Great change. Honestly, I have to say, that despite how small this update is, it's a pretty good update. While it might have been better to make Head Splitter a variant of Joe Splitter instead of removing it altogether, since there were some people who found it silly, putting Joe Splitter into Mahito's awakening really helps him land his moves and make him feel more like an awakening, rather than some crippled man with one-shots that he'll never get. Logic blocks are cool for people who build stuff, and custom servers help people show off their builds. Overall, I gotta say I really like the updates. Anyways, that's all I've gotta say. If you enjoyed this video, please make sure to like and subscribe because it genuinely helps you continue to stay on YouTube. I'm Noob Eternally, and I hope you have a good day. Bye.